and thank you for making on today's podcast. My name is John Gormally. I am market coordinator for Coeus Consulting based in Phoenix, Arizona. We are a managed security service provider, or MSP, however you call it, in the modern day of 2026. Today's conversation is going to be talking about not only understanding automotive IT, but understanding the digital transformation process from where automotive IT started in order to get into, obviously, a little bit more intensity on 2026. We'll talk a little bit on AI. Of course, it wouldn't be a podcast if AI was not somewhere in the conversation. We're definitely going to cover that today. But one of the most important things that really has transformed the automotive industry is the continuous challenges of compliance. And we're going to kind of dive a little bit in that as well. But I want to thank you so much for making time today. I know you've got a very busy schedule, but thank you for listening on today's podcast. We definitely appreciate that as well. So let's kind of get started. I'm going to kind of launch my slides and we'll kind of dive in a little bit. And again, if you have any questions, please use the comments field located here within the podcast as well. So as I mentioned, we'll be talking about driving digital transformation with the right technology. Now, very importantly, the automotive industry is one of the most high-tech industries, not only in the United States, but all over the world. Most cars, and most people know, have almost 465 sensors that have to interoperate with each other and use various different operating systems to be able to do that. So obviously, they're going to be prone to a cyber attack as well. But more importantly, the dealerships have to deal with the service, have to deal with the sale of the car, financing the car, and many times have to market the car as well. And that takes either sometimes a combination of a bunch of technologies or sometimes a fully integrated system. Well, obviously, why we're having this conversation, we have a lot of experience in the automotive industry here in the Phoenix area. We are a BBB triple-rated company. As I mentioned, we're a managed service provider based in the Phoenix area, and we support the automotive, healthcare, legal, manufacturing, finance, and semiconductor industries. And we extensively have a number of clients in the local area of Phoenix, Scottsdale, Tempe, and throughout the Southwest as well. So thank you again for all of us here at Coeus Consulting. Thank you for joining us on today's podcast as well. Now, let's talk first of all, what really is the costing factors of IT in the automotive dealership and, other parts of the automotive vertical space, outdated systems. It's one of those things where if you took a look at the computers and laptops and some of the Wi-Fi infrastructure, and even most of the times the applications that many dealerships use, many times they're using the same systems that have been around for a number of years. Why? Well, because it's proven. It works. Their business runs on it. They're selling cars, they're servicing vehicles. They're marketing, and people coming in for leasing and fleet vehicles. And they're running the same system they've run for maybe 5 to 10 years. But reality, though, is that that's where a lot of times where problems start to surface. Systems are slow. Wi-Fi isn't responding. Someone takes their Wi-Fi device onto the lot to go talk to a customer with their tablet, and suddenly they lose connection in the middle of trying to give some information. These things do have a bearance upon delivering that ultimate customer experience. So obviously, when you're thinking about outdated systems, you have to think about, well, where else is this going to be a potential problem? Is it, it's just a showroom? Or is it in, examples where you're trying to get, equipment looked up for parts and services? And then the other part you got to remember is not only is Wi-Fi everywhere within the dealership, but also the point is that you need to have consistent cybersecurity protection across the entire dealership as well. This is a lot of times where when we go in working with automotive companies and automotive dealerships, that's an area we really try to harp on, is saying, when did you put this, service department in? Oh, 5 years ago. Did you bring over the same infrastructure for IT and Wi-Fi? No, we added another system where somebody did it for us and they owed us a favor. That kind of mindset still exists today in a lot of the dealerships, even with compliance regulations. So the idea of incomplete security, various different platforms for hardware, and of course, Wi-Fi in general throughout the entire dealership, it actually does lead to a lot more problems than most dealerships, have reported. What's success? When you're talking about automotive IT, let's talk about 3 real critical things that really are about delivering that customer experience and doing it in a secure way. Seamless connectivity. Right? Wi-Fi 7 came out for a very specific reason. Wider spectrums, the ability to have more devices in a specific area, the ability to make sure that, if you need more, boost power in one end of the dealership versus the other, it automatically kind of balances the spectrum signaling around. Continuous operations. You don't have time for downtime. You don't have time for your DMS to go offline because your internet went offline. People running credit applications, you need the credit reports to come out quickly and efficiently. So you need to make sure that your internet connectivity is working properly. As we mentioned earlier, because of compliance, things like multi-factor authentication, encryption, and monitoring is required by the FTC by all automotive dealerships that are currently in business in the United States as well. So these are things we're talking about. What should be the end game of that transformation for automotive IT? It's really these three core areas as well. Now, reputation, again, this is something very fascinating if you really kind of dive back to the automotive industry in the 50s and 60s. And everyone that saw the Kurt Russell movie, Used Cars, back in the day, you kind of get a sense that there's a little, little sleaziness kind of thing in the industry. But truth be told, many people that are in the automotive industry run their businesses with the utmost integrity. They also more importantly understand that they're not just doing cash deals anymore like they did 40 years ago. It's credit. It's people giving up their social security numbers, their bank information. People going in some cases where many dealerships carry their own paper. They're not going outside financing. They're doing their own financing. So they're collecting this incredible amount of data. Well, of course, hackers know that. Hackers know that if they can jack into a car dealership and get access to this information, they now can be able to go after these consumers. And in many cases, they can go after these corporations. They're going to do fleet vehicles as well, right? Now, appealing targets. Why? Why are dealerships, hey, this is awesome, let's go after them? It's all about the data. High valuable financial information. They know that most dealers do not have consistency of cybersecurity across their environments. They know that many times that they've widened the dealership or they acquired another dealership next door and they kind of made it one big giant super center of cars. And in that, there's definitely air gaps of security, vulnerabilities that do exist. And most importantly, as most people know, when you do have a data breach, particularly small businesses and small dealerships, it takes a long time to recover. In many cases, most businesses today that suffer a cybersecurity attack, a denial of service attack, ransomware attack, more often than not within 7 months close their businesses because they just don't have the capital in order to sustain, unable to deliver service operations, for 5 to 7 days, or it takes them a month to clean up after a ransomware attack. And their cyber insurance providers have said, hey, you didn't do the things you told me you were supposed to do. Where's your multi-factor authentication? Where's the firewalls? Are you monitoring 24/7, right? If you're not doing any of those things, cyber insurance providers most likely will kind of look the other way, right? So also, more importantly, what feeds onto that is now you have the issue of being risk of non-compliant. So now basically you're looking at not only having to explain that, well, we did not protect that valuable information to the FTC, but now you have to explain it to potential lawsuits. You have to explain that now your business is now going to lose money because people don't trust the fact that their information is going to be safe with you as a car dealership. These are things that all come up that are very, very, very real, right? Now, let's talk a little bit about in detail now the FTC compliance blueprint. There's not a dealer out there that does not know about this. They know about the requirement for risk assessments. They know about the importance of having to have a training program to train employees on FTC compliance. And most important of all, oversight. They have to make sure that the people that they're doing business with are not going to compromise their data in any form. This could be people that do marketing for them or supply chain people or people that kind of exist as like co-partners as well. These are things that all business owners, that all dealerships have to consider to think, well, am I staying compliant? It's one thing to be compliant in January, but there's another thing to say that am I compliant all the way through January, February, March, April, and so on. And that goes back to that continuously monitoring requirements that managed providers like ourselves provide to automotive dealerships. Now, how do we help with technology? I mean, great question, right? I mean, ultimately, people thinking it's just PCs, it's laptops and tablets, cell phones, a fax machine. Not really. We really come in and look at the entire digital environment of a dealership today. Everything from digital displays to Wi-Fi for, I go there and get my car work done. I have a Kia Niro. I go in and get oil change at the Kia dealership here in Tucson. And, again, they have Wi-Fi. Now, is that a separate Wi-Fi network than from the dealership itself? In most cases, yes, because, they're protecting their SSIDs and so on. But you also have to consider that, is it being maintained? Is it being patched, right? Is there somebody adding a rogue Wi-Fi, into the environment and now allows them to be able to hack the people sitting there like I am getting my oil change? So we look at IT for automotive as not just specifically finance or service or sales. It's the entire dealership. Is making sure that when we create that kind of like protective shield of protecting the data, we look at all the elements within a dealership, not just specific ones that people know. Dealership challenge, as we mentioned earlier, Wi-Fi dead zones absolutely delay the sales. You're out there, you got your tablet. They want to see that pickup truck that's like way at the end of the lot. It takes like almost like a journey to get there. And by the time you get out there, you're doing this on your tablet, and suddenly the thing isn't working. People are staring at you going, I can go somewhere else. This is a really, really perilous thing. So often not, when we engage with our customers and we do Wi-Fi projects, an example, as part of our managed service offerings, we're out there doing zone testing. We're out there making sure that we do site surveys, that we're frequently doing them every quarter, saying, well, now you have more devices. You now need more spectrum. You now make sure that the furthest car, you can show a video to that customer or prospective customer from the furthest car lot, within your particular land. Those are areas that we definitely really bring to attention to most business owners. We get this a lot, overwhelmed by FTC. When FTC changes their policies and regulations and mandates throughout the year, are they staying up on it? And that's where compliance advisory services comes in within managed services. It's the ability to work with clients to say, okay, this is coming in July. We want to make sure that you're dialed in and you're ready, and here's how we can help you do that as well. But yes, this definitely, when we talk to dealerships for the first time, this is the thing that comes up, is they're confused on the changes and they're looking for a partner to help them. Outdated hardware. Yes, it goes back to the notion, if it works, don't break it, right? If it's not broken, please let it go. We're going to keep it until the very last hard drive spin, the very last processor, when the memory's up and everything, the video's great, and there's a crack in the display. But yet, in the end of the day, it still works. So this is something, having to sit and work with them about hardware refresh. Why you have to have more memory, want more processing power, especially the fact that if you're going to be doing a lot more extensive SaaS applications, and you need to have faster internet and need to have faster Wi-Fi. But it also comes back to those endpoint devices. If you're using an out-of-date laptop or an old phone, and it suddenly is freaking out, and it needs to be updated frequently, or it gets subject to a malware, a virus, or something like that, and you don't have all the right capabilities or software, and you load antivirus and it slows down the machine. These are things that come into play. So again, it's very similar to having, Wi-Fi problems, compliance mandate challenges, but outdated hardware is definitely a big part of our discussion with our perspectives. So one of the things we did at Coeus Consulting was we came out with the Codex framework, and the Codex framework itself really kind of applies to multiple industries, but particularly when it applies to automotive. It's really about moving people from reactive IT and reactive cybersecurity to more of a proactive incident response functionality. So this is really a transformation process from waiting till something goes wrong versus stopping something before it actually turns into something. And that's where we have really grown our business and have grown our kind of reputation in the market, is the ability to really be more proactive and utilizing our Codex framework in order to do things like preemptive, password changes to make sure that it's non-disruptive to the user community. The ability to make sure the systems are patched well ahead, of expectational times, to making sure that when devices are introduced in network, that they're put in a holding state until they've cleared all the proper security protocols and capabilities as well. And most importantly, as we discussed, is one of the big things about dealerships, proactive replacement of hardware life cycles, to making sure that we know that these laptops are coming up for refresh in a year. Maybe we can do something with our manufacturing partners and say, hey, let's cut these people a little bit of a deal on the back end, and let's get them some fresh hardware, so that way they continue to keep blossoming, especially when they have their Memorial Day car sales, their July 4th car sales, their Labor Day, Father's Day, Mother's Day, everyday sales that happen in that industry. But more importantly, the Codex framework really was developed to help provide people and move people to a very more proactive state for IT. Now, let's break these down real quick. It's important. Network infrastructure, right? The network's slow. You have outdated switches. You're trying to do everything Wi-Fi, but you don't have the capacity, right? That's an area that we definitely step in and say, here's what we can do. Understanding how the cloud works. Many of our clients are using SaaS-based applications from providers. Some actually have their own applications, and some have their data and things that are stored within the cloud. Are they running the most current servers? Are they updating the servers properly? Are they making sure they're running AV and encryption on these servers, right? Having access to a chief information officer or CIO. We offer VCIO services in order for dealerships to look at us as that trusted advisor, look at us at have a C-level type peer person engage with them on a monthly and quarterly basis to say, let's take a look at where we are. Let's take a look at how many attacks. Let's take a look at performance. Let's take a look to make sure that none of your salespeople or service departments had any downtime during this quarter. And if so, what can we do to make things more efficient and better for you as well? Business continuity, people, It's not insurance. I know everyone keeps talking about business continuity and disaster recovery and all the other stuff. It's been that way for years. But the reality, though, is you have to have a business continuity strategy. If, in fact, you lose internet connection, how are you going to process credit applications? How are you going to process applications and things? Or more importantly, how are you going to fulfill service orders if your network goes down or the internet goes down? And having backups and having a backup plan and having the ability to have backup connectivity as well. Having those already predetermined ensures that your business operations maintains a sense of continuity. But I will tell you that people tend see this word and go, you know what, I got to cut costs. This is not the place to cut costs. This is the place to make sure that you've got these things covered. And that's one of the things we definitely work with our clients and prospects on. Where we come in again is that when, obviously end-user help desk is probably one of the biggest things that we get hired for. Is people saying, I need a 24/7 coverage or just weekends. Or they may say just 8 to 5 or 8 to 8 or whatever their cycle is for work. And they want to make sure that their sales teams do not have to stop and update their computers or stop and have to change their password, in the middle of the afternoon, all these crazy things that drives people nuts, right? That's where we come in and say, we can be able to do that. We can build a help desk solution strategy for you. Obviously, cybersecurity, we cover everything. Endpoints, email, cloud, everything relating to cybersecurity is a real core of what we try to do and deliver for our customers, right? And of course, we get into computer provisioning, which goes back to the hardware refresh. We have the ability to help our clients onboard new PCs and new servers in order to make sure that they have optimal endpoints. And of course, this all wraps up back to our professional services and managed services capabilities. So when we think about what's the unique value and what we bring, Coeus Consulting, we've been in business since 2019. We have some of the largest dealerships in the Phoenix area. We have many car dealerships that come to us and saying, I don't need the full gamut. I need just this. And we have the ability to tailor our solutions in managed services and in some cases co-managed services in order to help deliver better serviceability than what they're currently experiencing today. We do webinars, of course. We do lunch and learns. We do things. We provide our clients with years of experience in understanding what it means to deliver value at the cost and realizing that dealerships, like everybody else, is on tight margins. So having the ability for them to spend money on IT is kind of like, what am I getting from it? First of all, uptime, serviceability, compliant, and secure data, right? So we create managed service offerings. We also have the ability to bring people on site if necessary to help with Wi-Fi surveys, to help deliver equipment, to help set up printers, anything that we can deliver that ultimate service to our customers. We definitely are open to doing that. The other thing also more importantly is, and I emphasized this earlier with compliance, we have clients that try to do compliance. They try to stay on the FTC. They try to do things, but they ultimately come back and say, somehow we fell out of compliance. We got to get back into it. That, again, comes part of our managed services capabilities as well. Our onboarding process is very important because one of the questions always asked is, okay, great. I love the pitch, love the sales. I get it. Thanks for taking me for dinner. But I cannot afford to have my people down because of ITism. And that's where we come in with our onboarding process. That goes back to that, Codex framework a little bit, but it really talks about how we bring on new capabilities and new services while we're also making sure that your people are not having any downtime. And if there is downtime, it's very minimal. But these are things because we've done this before and we have extended experience in working with automotive and other industries as well. The idea of having a zero friction onboarding process is very, very critical and very part of our DNA, right? Now, before we do any onboarding whatsoever, there's a whole workflow behind understanding the starting date, the ending date. What we do a lot of due diligence up front. What's the expectation of the customer? Can we do by department migrations? Do we do individual migrations? Do we do C-levels first? Do we do the ownership first? That's where we really kind of map out what days we're going to do certain things. Sometimes we may do stuff after 8. Sometimes we'll do it on the weekends when it's, hopefully it's, if it's busy, we'll back off. We'll do it like on a Tuesday or something. And then we actually go back to researching what they currently have today. And this is where, we really want our customers to introduce us to the previous IT provider so we can be able to get some tribal knowledge on what's going on, right? And many times it could be some passwords. It could be, hey, how did you guys, where did you put the Wi-Fi controllers? Were they, powered by Ethernet or were they plugging into a wall? All these things are kind of part of the onboarding process. And of course, once we've gathered information, due diligence, then we obviously start with the onboarding. During the onboarding process, it is a multi-step process and it requires the organization and culture to work with us so we can work with them. It is not a we're going to turn the key and do everything and not have some throughput or some input from the customer. We need to know what's important, what order priority are things important. Is the Wi-Fi more important than the local area network connectivity? Is the service department only can have any IT outages after 8 p.m.? Is the sales department, can they only be accessed in the morning? These are the things that we need to work together on to making sure that your onboarding process is seamless as well. And then afterwards, when we talk about, well, now that you've done it, now you're doing managed services, what happens? Well, it's a continuous process. We've mapped out everything. We now have that relationship. You now have access to your service managers. You now have access to us 24/7 for assistance. And then this is where we start working together on, do we have the right technology out there? Many times the onboarding engagements may not phase out a lot of old technology. We may just inherit it for a time being in order to make sure that we want to make sure you have a continuous process and continuous capabilities. But over time, we'll be looking at something saying, I think we need to replace that email security, or we need to look at that endpoint because it's slowing down your machines and it's not providing any XDR capability or NDR capability or EDR capability, as a matter of fact. So that's another really big part of it. And of course, what our executives do is about making sure we meet on a quarterly basis with the leadership and say, are we meeting or exceeding your expectations, right? What were the technical problems that came up in this quarter that hindered your ability to be successful? This is all done on a continuous basis during the engagement and obviously the entire year as well. So ultimately, it's closing, modernizing technology in a dealership is not, sadly say, it's not a plug and play, right? However, the fact that we have experience, the fact that we have the talent and we're local into the market, and we have the ability to really help our clients really understand the value of what we can deliver, this is where we ultimately show up and do the greatest work that we can do for you. We're excited for opportunity to work with you. If you are interested and you have questions about relating to what we're doing in Automotive IT and our digital transformation and our managed services, please reach out to us. You see our phone number, 602-938-6387, or email us at sales@coe.us as well. I want to thank you very, very much for taking time today to listen to today's podcast. My name is John Gormally. I am the marketing coordinator for Coeus Consulting based in Phoenix, Arizona. And I want to thank you again for making the time. If you have any questions, hit us up on our website. We'd love to hear from you as well. Take care.